Hello there, Jeff. Hello there, Jeff. How are you doing? Oh, we've just gone live. You're watching the Car Sim and Race Driver Show. I can see you, but I can't hear you. Are you? Is your audio? Oh, that's it. That's better. That's super. There we are. It's great to see you. Thank you very much for putting time aside tonight. I know you're incredibly got a hectic schedule and lots of things happening, but it's fantastic to have you on the show. And there's already lots of people waiting to see how it's all going to go and to ask you questions. So I'll quickly say to all our viewers and listeners, you're watching the Car, Sim and Race Driver Show. And tonight's special guest is the man that you rarely see. You might see an arm, you might see a leg, you might see him passing by. It is, of course, Jeff Colclough. Good evening, Jeff.
Good evening, Hugh, and anyone watching. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Very welcome. Now, to everyone who's watching tonight, make sure you ask plenty of questions. Just write them in the comments, and we'll do our best to ask Jeff the questions that you got for him. I've also got a number of questions here, and I'm sure Thea's watching in the background to be taking your answers. But we'll see. I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine. No problem at all. So the first question we have for you tonight is, how did you start sim racing? Because I would believe you're a good sim racer yourself. And that's how Thea was. You kind of introduced Thea to it, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. I know the basics, I guess. So I guess for me, my introduction to sim racing, I talked about this once on my stream long ago. I think it probably started with Gran Turismo 2. It was kind of, obviously, I wasn't doing anything like PC sim racing back in the day, but certainly Gran Turismo 2. And when was Gran Turismo 2? I think it was 2000, 1999, something like that. Yeah, around that. And I would have been around sort of 16, 17. And I was really into it. And I had the Logitech GT Pro wheel, I think it was. That had the sequential shifter on the side of the wheel and stuff. And and that was licensed for the game, a bit like what they do nowadays with the GT Force, and that was great fun. I really enjoyed that. When you had the wheel on your lap, kind of stuff, and you're balancing it, all that sort of thing. And I used to love that. So I think that was kind of the start for me, really. But then there was a big hiatus in the middle, really. And then last year, we're coming up to the end of 2020 now, aren't we? But last year, started getting back into it again. I'd been watching YouTubers sim racing for quite a few years, Jimmy, Super GT, people like that. Kind of living vicariously, as it were, and watching them do it. And I decided in the end to get back into it. So I got a Logitech wheel. I think you've got a Logitech at the moment.
Yeah, I've got a G29. Yep.
There we go. So I bought a G920 because all I had was an Xbox, and I was playing. I quickly found out that Project Cars 2 was the only kind of sim really on the Xbox. So I started playing a bit of that, and started playing one or two leagues. So I was trying to find out, how to get into some proper racing, because online lobbies are a bit of a mess. So tried to find some leagues, found one or two, had some really fun, exciting races, getting involved, and that was kind of that lit the fire for me. And then eventually I built my PC at Christmas and haven't looked back really.
Wow. It was funny today because I was watching your stream yesterday when Thea was doing the GT4 racing at, I think it was Misano last night.
Yeah, the test drive, yeah.
Yeah, and she did a 137, mid 137. And I thought, right, I'll try, because I did get my ACC to work on my PC, which is the first. Thanks to all the chat advice last night, I managed to download the right software. And then when I tried it buffered. It wasn't even going in real time. When I turned the wheel, it would turn about 5 seconds later. So I thought, there's something definitely not right. So I did put everything on low, but it still didn't quite work in terms of all the settings. So I thought, right, I'll go back to PS4 and have a go on that. And that worked, and that was great fun. So I got onto Misano, and I thought, I've done a 137. I thought, that's fantastic. I've beaten Thea, after only about 2 hours of practice. And then I realized I was in a GT3 class, and of course she was in a GT4. So I thought, I've got about another 9 seconds to go at least.
A little bit more work there. I guess Rome wasn't built in a day. Hey, Hugh. So I don't know how much PC sim racing you've done in recent years, but it's definitely a step up in fidelity and skill. So it's quite hard.
to be fair, I've only done really GT Sport. I do have some on the PC, but it's not. I'll need to get a proper PC sorted out to get that all working. But it shows how good Thea is, because she's able to do very, very good times. So you had started at the end of, or kind of at the end of last year, early this year, when you built your PC, and then was it just a matter of that Thea kind of came out, saw you do it and wanted to have a go as well, and you thought, right, you'll give her a hand, or that kind of thing?
No. Actually, I kind of forced her. She was like, no, and I was like, no, you must drive. So stop it. I was like, one more lap, and eventually she broke and decided she loves sim racing and never looked back. That's part of the story. The other part is that she did try bits, kind of, last year, the Xbox, and she'd have a go here and there, and never really got into it. And then this year she watched the 12 Hours of Bathurst race, which was one of the last motorsport events that we had. Just at the end of January. That was the 12 hours, obviously, in Australia. And she really loved watching that with me. Obviously, it's a crazy race and crazy track. Yeah. And I kind of said, well, I've got that kind of experience available right now on ACC. We've got Bathurst and Gt3. So, and also I know how good ACC is on a strong PC. The experience is quite incredible. Best sim by far. You can argue about how accurate it is and so on. All I know is it's definitely the most fun. When you really get into a race and you're at pace, it's really thrilling. So I figured that with the right game, it wouldn't be too hard. And lo and behold, she played ACC and very quickly loved it. And then, she'd always talked about having something to stream. And I figured this would be a great thing for her. Thea was obviously unsure, because she thought, who would want to see someone, who isn't the fastest? But obviously, I think it's more about seeing how she's improved and watching that journey. She does want to get really fast, but at the beginning, she was, going, probably 10 seconds slower than you are now, right? And she just put herself to it constantly over 7 months and has done incredibly, and is now, kind of faster than me a lot of the time. So there you go. Didn't take long.
Now, that's the thing. So how do you find, you're kind of, obviously you were saying that your ACC is now one of your favorite games. Do you have other racing games that also stack up? Thea does lots of different racing games, like Dirt Rally and things like that. Do you play those ones as well? Yeah,
she does like 5 or 6 a week sometimes. I did a little bit of iRacing before, but iRacing is not so much for me, I guess, in the end. You really do have to put the long hours into it, and I don't like the fact with iRacing you can't really drive the cars over the edge. You just have to drive near the edge, and that's it. So not so exciting. But obviously the online aspect and league aspect of it is the best. So a lot of people are drawn to that. Excuse me. I do like the rally a lot. So Dirt Rally I enjoy a lot. I streamed some of that today. I actually was leading the TheAmusante Back to the 80s Cup on the first stage, and then I binned it on the second one, Terminal Damage. So never mind. So I do enjoy rally game. What other sims? I like one of the things I enjoyed about PC2, Project Cars 2, was the variety. Yeah. And AMS2, Automobilista 2, is kind of meant to do that. It's the latest version, if you like, of Project Cars. And I do like the variety sometimes in racing, but you'll find with that it's hard to really have a proper race or, anything like that. People stick to the stuff they know most, and that's where you get the most kind of proper races. So, you end up doing a lot of GT3 racing, really. And ACC, I think, is definitely the standout sim for me at the moment by far.
Yeah, even just for me playing that from, Gran Turismo and then going on to ACC on the PS4, it is, the first thing you notice is the noise. The engine noise is far more realistic. It's far better. You have to turn it up so you can, although to be fair...
Have you got your headphones? Are you in the headphones with that one here?
I haven't done that yet, to be fair.
Get it in your headphones, bang it up. That's incredible,
But yeah, and also you get the squeaks when you brake. Everything squeaks, and that's what you see on board when you're watching proper GT3 racing, isn't it? You'll hear the cars kind of squeal a little bit as they brake, and so all of that, and the sound of the gravel going through if you go wide on a corner, all of that seems to be much more detail and great fun, and I think that gives it. Also, it feels quite kind of, you can roll the car through certain corners. Well, I think in GT Sport it's harder to do that. It's much more. I think with GT Sport, you just arrive and drive. Well, more focused.
I don't know too much about the GT Sport physics in reality. I think obviously for a number of reasons there tends to be less physics going on. So obviously a console has less computing power than a PC invariably. So there'll be probably less physics going on, less calculations on the tires, on the suspension and things like that, on the body and the physics and G-forces. So there'll be less of that being calculated. Of course, ACC is a more focused game. Focused on GT3 cars and perfected the GT3 car. And in reality, they only had one car to kind of work with in different ways for the different, ones in the series. So probably quite easy then in that respect. And also, if you look at the passion of the developers at ACC, people like Aris and some of the others at Kunos, they love GT3 racing. They're at the track all the time. Aris is at the Nürburgring lapping in his little MX-5 and so on, and getting in GT cars sometimes and being in the car and wanting to replicate that. Right, and being focused on that one thing. So I think that allows them to get closer to it. And I remember the first time I played ACC on my PC, I was kind of surprised at how good it was, because I've been playing Project Cars on the Xbox. I've got a 1X and I've got a big TV, and I had it all. It was quite good. And then I played a Assetto Corsa competition on my PC, and I couldn't believe what I was doing. Obviously, on a PC screen, so I've got a higher refresh rate. And everything. And I was kind of surprised at how good it was. I was like, wow, this is. And even now, most PCs kind of struggle to run it fast, which is always a good sign. It's quite future-proof. So,
Yeah. No, I've got a lot of work to do to get I'll have to get a new computer and get it all sorted out. Because when I see it all working, and I'm going to get an Elgato streaming thing as well, so I can do it properly. And at the moment, I tend to broadcast from my PS4 directly, which, to be fair, has done a reasonable job. But I have a PSN of Fat Man and a cheap sim.
You've got to start somewhere.
So it's quite fun, and we do that on a Monday night, which is always good fun, and that kind of thing. So we've talked about favorite games, and how about best tracks and car combinations? What would be your pick for your favorite?
I think it would have to be the the group, what are they called? Is it the Group C 90s GT cars? The Minolta Toyota and stuff like that, and the Mazda at Trial Mountain.
Oh, yeah.
Can't beat that. Trial Mountain is the best track ever. That's one of the things I love about Gran Turismo Sport, to be fair. Everyone goes on and on about, laser scanning real tracks and so on, and all the money it costs to license them. Why don't you just make your own perfect, incredible ones for free? And have any layout you want, and incredible landscapes and stuff that you couldn't really have in reality. So I'm all for that in Gran Turismo, and obviously Trial Mountain is one of those. But I guess fantasy aside, if we bring it back to real life a bit, I like short cars on short tracks. So the Red Bull Ring inner track, I like to use the inner track of Red Bull Ring. It's quite a short circuit. It usually it cuts it in half, really. It's already a short circuit. And anything front-wheel drive, like the TCR, Audi Cup, or even, Slurden, that front-wheel drive cars that you get, up to 150 horsepower, around there with lift-off oversteer is a lot of fun. And then you start building up to, I guess, the best Gt3 combos, really, because of the ACC that I've been playing. And I think for me, the best tracks there are probably things like, I do love Silverstone in GT3. I think there's a nice challenge, a balance between, grip and a little bit of drift there on high-speed turns. And I guess, I hate to say it, but I think Bathurst is another good example. Because of the walls and the excitement, you can get away with it in a GT car. They're not so fragile. And then I think, as Thea showed the other day, open-wheel cars at Suzuka, really. F3, F1 at Suzuka, with all the flows. You can't really beat it, can you, really? So I think if you're looking at combos, that's the kind of thing I'll be looking for.
Yeah. Now, we've got our first question for you. This is the first, from Keith will own you.
Hello, Keith.
Keith says, who is faster, Jeff or Thea?
It's the obvious question, isn't it? It's the obvious question. How do I answer this one? Well, I've got to make sure I wake up in the morning. So, who's faster? It's a tough one. I think, we did the 12 hours of Silverstone endurance race together, and I think you were kind of faster, no, Thea? I think you were pretty much faster than me at Silverstone. So, on the rally, I'd have to say, to be honest, she's probably faster than me on the rally at the moment. You pretty much have been. All your PBs are better than mine now. On certain tracks I've seen her on recently, I know she's really pushing hot times, and she's only, like a second and a half, 2 seconds off the aliens. And I know it'd take me a long time to get to that. So I'd have to say Thea is faster at the moment. I've got loads of excuses ready if you want them. I work on that a lot. While she's in the rig, I work on those. And that's the thing. She's stolen my rig, Hugh. It's been an absolute hijacking. I used to use it, and now she just uses it for streaming every day, so I never see it. Is the easy answer. But no, she's more consistent than me. She's learning a lot. She's putting in the time, so she's probably faster. Yeah.
I mean, I suppose at the end of the day, if she's doing it 5 or 6 times a week with all the different streams that she does, then that does give her a lot of practice. But it's great to watch, though. And the fact that you've kind of helped her start is a great thing too. And and she really enjoys it, and she has a unique selling point for her stream. Is that she's funny, she's interesting with that, and as well because you're there, especially when giving her tips on setup, and if she's doing a longer race, you're kind of telling her to focus on certain things. So it's like you're the kind of pit strategist and engineer ready to help her with that.
Yeah, I'm a bit low level on that. Obviously, I know the basics. I'm a bit of a jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing. So I know the basics, and I can teach her those, and I have been able to because Thea literally knew kind of zero before she came into this. And I think this is an interesting point as well that kind of stops a lot of people getting into sim racing. Is that there's normally an assumption that you're coming into it because you already love motorsport and that's why you're doing it. Right, it's a simulation of motorsport, so that's why you do it. But in reality, there's a lot of people who enjoy gaming and esports as a hobby, and will find this being just another variety of that. So she's come into it without any motorsports knowledge, and that can be a bit bewildering and threatening. And you look at the language that's used, even for beginners in sim racing, and it's I'll take this apex and use the throttle and that to help her with the very basics, of course, and learning all of that. But it does get to a point where you kind of pass on the baton, and there's a lot of people in the awesome community that we've got. Who help out a lot of people, and that really helps. We really do our best to help each other in the community. And she's got Dan AMR, who is incredibly fast and has been helping out. And also, he raced with us at Silverstone, and he also did a lot of racing in the More Female Racers series. And he's a brilliant teacher, and he's incredibly fast. So he's been doing a lot of work with her. And then we've got Frosty Bird, who helps with the iRacing stuff. He tends to know a lot about that. We've got people helping out with the rally, so it's great to see little bits everywhere. I've just kind of done the basics, and I'm kind of running out of ideas now and moving on to other people. So there we go. I'll be learning from her soon.
We've actually got a question from Frosty Bird.
There we
go. What sim do you enjoy more, iRacing? It's just moved on my comments here. Where are we? What is up here? 2 seconds.
What trouble's he starting? Yeah.
It was iRacing ACC, and I'm trying to find the third one. Where is it there? It was right there, and then it's disappeared.
Hot shot racing?
Yeah, so it was iRacing. Is it still there? No, it's gone. I don't know what's happened to that.
He deleted it. He's probably seen me talking about ACC and deleted it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gone. Yeah, so I think it was ACC, iRacing, and something else, unless my YouTube comments are finishing up there. Dirt Rally 2. So what would be your favourites?
ACC or Dirt Rally?
Well, I think my favourite's clearly ACC from a gaming perspective. But again, I've not really got into iRacing in the way that I know you can. It's a little bit the driving just puts me off slightly that you can't quite gun it. Which I guess I wonder. I've not driven a real race car, so I don't know how sensitive they are. But a lot of real race drivers have driven that, and then other sims like ACC and said, well, they feel like ACC is a bit more of a racing experience. So there we go. Yeah. I think iRacing has the best business model. If you're asking what I think the best game is, I think you really were, but I think they've got the best business model because obviously their subscription model is very clever. It allows them to keep developing on the same platform, which is a good thing. Obviously. Whereas ACC might struggle a little bit with that, but I've got high hopes for that game. There's a lot to come, I think.
Yeah. Now, Thea has got a question for you. What was the most challenging thing you had to teach me about motorsports or sim racing?
I think that's who knows. Maybe the hardest is still to come. I think the granny hands was quite funny at the beginning. Actually, the granny hands were quite funny. I think that was one of the main ones. So obviously at the beginning she was racing a lot like this. You can probably see the thing on camera, I think. And I was trying to bring her more to a kind of 9-3 position, which I don't know. I mean, I've seen some races up here, to be fair, but really you want to be down here. And she was finding herself every time she was racing, she's like this. And I go, put your hand down, nigga, like this. And as soon as the next turn would come up, the inside hand would creep up ready for the turn. I was like, oh no, here we go. And then before you know, she's like trying to do this, and it was quite cute. So the granny hands was quite funny. And then I think the hardest thing is, I don't know. I think getting a later and later apex and getting a feel for a car which is on the limit. I've not really tried teaching that yet. So I think that would be. I think that's something I probably should have taught her more earlier. I think that's something Dan's helping her with a lot. But it's just being comfortable with the car. Once you're going really fast, like the fastest people, the car is always on the edge. Obviously, right? That's how you go the fastest. And I'm not really. I haven't done enough of that myself in recent years, and sort of teaching her to be there isn't easy. So I think that'd be probably the hardest job. Late apexes and really pushing the car.
No, that's a good question. Now, we have another question from one of my co-hosts here. He said he will disown me unless I ask the question. Who was it who introduced the pink gloves? Did you buy them for Thea, or did she buy them herself?
The pink gloves. Well, I'll tell you what that was actually, funnily enough. So aside from obviously getting her into sim racing, I do a bit of go-karting as well. Oh, yeah. Nothing crazy, just a little bit, a few times a year sort of stuff when I can. And when we go, we always use the stuff that you get at the place. You hire all their equipment. And you couldn't tell who each other is really. It's hard to know. She's got to tuck her hair in, so you still don't know who it is, right? So I figured if she had her own gloves, and also the gloves, they always smell. And also they always come off because they've never got a Velcro on, and they're always falling off your hands when you're trying to kart. It's a nightmare. So I thought, let's buy her own gloves. And I got her some mountain biking gloves because that seemed like the only kind of viable pink option. There weren't women's karting gloves, and they get quite expensive as well, race gloves, and we didn't need much. So I found very cheap mountain biking gloves on Amazon. That's all they are. And I figured also she'd like a little bit of pink in her life sometimes. So I got her those. She had a pink balaclava as well for the racing. So when we're karting, you can see a little bit of pink balaclava, and you got a pink gloves on the wheel, so you can't miss her. And that's how it started. So I'll take credit for them. There we go.
Yeah. I always remember going to a race day at Knockhill many years back in 1994, and I bought at the time an old helmet I got from Silverstone at the shop there, and also a balaclava. And this race day, they said they'd supply you with everything, but I wanted to show that I was better than that. And I think I bring
all the gear,
all the gear, no idea. And so I said I've got my balaclava on and my helmet on, and I went out to drive the single seater. And I remember one of the instructors saying, "Are you sure you're going to need that?" And I went, "Well, if it burns up, you never know." It was like, but thankfully I didn't. Although I did cause a red flag.
Lovely.
Because I overtook somebody on the wrong side and they spun off when they go through. And I was the only one who could keep going, and everyone else, that one person went off and just stopped before the tyres, but had to abandon his car. So they brought the red flag out after me, and I was one of the last people to get their certificate at the end of the day. They were that there.
Lovely. Oh, well. Was that a case of, it was on the track days, they say things like you can only overtake on the left-hand side?
It was really annoying. It was at Knockhill on a long straight. I was having a really good tussle with a guy, and I just got carried away, and we kind of came into the first couple of corners, and he just kind of slowed down quite early, and I just jinked out to the right, and I thought, oh yeah, I've got through, and then I realised that was the thing. But what made me spin was that there was a stream of water on the left-hand bend, and I just went on that, and that's what made me pirouette, missing everybody, but people crashed in sympathy, trying to avoid me. So that was the thing. And we saw the cat there. The cat was on the show too.
Yeah, there we go, Tony. Tony, the chairman. He's the chairman of the TheAmusante channel. Yeah, he's all good. He's a little Siberian. He's 4.5 years old, and he's very, very cute and lovable, aren't you, Tony? No, mate.
Yeah.
Where's your food? Oh, you got food in your chin. Oh, you've been eating.
That's a fantastic and unique selling point. That's the thing, racing and cats.
You got to cover all the bases.
Yeah. So what's been, in all the kind of moments you've had this year, I mean, you've had lots of races. You've got as well, Thea's been there doing a female racing championship. What would you say has been the highlight of the season so far?
Okay, well, it's been 7 months, and we kind of said at the start, let's do this for a year and see what happens, right? I dare say this will probably go on long beyond that, because of what we're creating has been great. It's been awesome. My highlight, I think, funnily enough, I mean, I'm sure there's loads and it's hard to rank them, but I think quite recently in the MFR series, There was a point where she was in the mix with, I think, about 4 or 5 cars, all girls racing each other. I think it might have been the third race at Misano. And I just thought it was brilliant. It might have been Hungaroring, actually, on before it. I thought it was brilliant to see 4 or 5 women on track together, just racing, quite competitively in the GT4s on ACC. You know how hard that is now.
Yeah.
And obviously they'd literally thrown themselves into it, just like Thea had a few months before. A lot of these girls really didn't have any experience in sim racing, again in motorsport, some of them. So that was a big challenge, and also broadcasting it and being commentated on. For your first gig is not easy for anyone. So seeing them all race together, it kind of made me realise that this has actually happened. Her dream of getting women racing with her, which at the beginning seemed quite distant. There's a very good reason why this project was started, right? The massive lack of women, or whichever one put those words, in sim racing. It's a real shame, and it's something obviously we're going to try and help to change.
Yeah.
So having that moment where she was actually racing with other women in a race, I thought that was great to see. I guess another highlight, recently the P2 at Bathurst in iRacing, that was pretty special. That's no joke, that race, and she nailed that one in the F3 cars. And then obviously our 12-hour Silverstone race together was quite an epic experience. I've never done an enduro race like that. I've always wanted to. And that was quite an amazing experience as well. So really enjoyed those.
Yeah. And we've talked about the highlights. What has also been the funniest moments? Because there must have been some events you've done and you've just had to laugh. Either it's gone well or it's gone terribly, and you've just had to kind of laugh it off. Or what's been things that have been funny in your early experiences of sim racing, both you and for
well, I mean, you've got to have some thick skin, I guess. We did it. We really chucked ourselves into it when Thea started. I'm sorry, I've got an absolutely dead cat here, just falling apart. He's a complete mess. I'll get off. Come on, right, there we go. It was. We really chucked ourselves into it at the start. To be honest, it was. We said let's stream, and I was like, well, let's do it tomorrow, kind of thing. And we didn't have, we didn't have equipment or anything. We just had a PC. Kind of got some webcams to go out. No, I think at first we used our phone because I found out on OBS you could download an app and use your phone as the webcam. We used we had a phone, so we had a webcam. And we tried with that, and we bought a piece of green cloth, and you could green screen straight away. The cloth was like £5 on Amazon, right? So, all those kind of things. We just tried to chuck some stuff together. The first day we couldn't stream because it was on YouTube. They said you needed to verify your account for 24 hours, so we streamed on Twitch instead. Let's just do it. We're not going to not do it. And then that was it. The next day we streamed on YouTube. She did, and we just kind of went from there. And in terms of funny moments, really, there's been a few accidental moments. The one time she was streaming, and I stood up next to this. I was on the floor, funnily enough, in the streaming room, just sitting next to her. As I stood up and leant on the PC and pushed the power button.
Oh no!
Genuinely, just I couldn't do it again. Well, I probably will. No, that's not. But I just stood up and I kind of used the PC to get up, and I put my finger in the power indent and turned it off. And she's in the middle of a race streaming. One time when one of our friends asked us to change the relative setting on the screen so they could see our timing, and I went to push the button on the keyboard, and unfortunately we've got a keyboard which has got really lovely function keys along the top, which if you don't push another button, doesn't do the F key, does this special thing. And the special thing for this key was to turn off the screen.
Oh no!
Or switch the screen. So I've gone to change the relative, and she's in the middle of an iRacing race where you have, loads of safety rating and stuff like that, and you can't touch anything. And I've gone and turned off her screen mid-race, and she's still driving, and she can hear everything, but just the monitor's switched off. Oh, that was good. Yeah, mind that function. So there were some pretty funny moments. Obviously, some of the moments when she's been racing and stuff have been pretty funny. Just the other day actually at Monza in the LMP2. Where she's gone through on the back straight just before the Parabolica and dodged about 10 cars, one somersaulting in the air over her.
Good.
That's on her Instagram. If you have a look, you'll see it straight away. That was really funny.
Is that on our kind of adverts? They kind of play. They have because on one of your intro sessions on Thea's stream.
That's an old one actually. That's very old. But obviously back in the day when she was doing her rookie licenses in iRacing, you would find quite a lot of that, especially in the oval. But no, this was when was it? Monday. A Monday it happened. You'll see it on her Instagram. It's the latest post, I think. Absolute massacre. Cars flying everywhere. It's hilarious. And she went straight through it. So that was funny. That's pretty fun. There's always a highlight coming up.
Yeah. So here's a big question for all of us who are watching, and many of us who have some form of sim equipment. Do you think that the better equipment you have actually helps, or do you think you can do good lap times with basic sim equipment?
Well, I guess the obvious answer is I'm sure the fastest could get out the worst equipment and do something similar to their fastest lap. Right. So I don't think the equipment really has a massive impact on times. I think you could probably even use a wheel with no force feedback and 2 dodgy pedals. And if you gave it to the best sim racer and gave him enough time, he'd probably do close to his fastest times. Right. So the equipment, it's a couple of things. Obviously, the visceral impact of it, whatever you want to call it, and the feeling of it improves with better equipment. Sitting in this incredible rig that we're very lucky to be supplied with by Track Racer adds a lot of excitement to it and fun. And that's, obviously, I'm not trying to win too many medals, and I don't expect to be an esports star anytime soon. So for me, it's about enjoying it, obviously, and having all the equipment that makes it more involving. Is definitely there. Also, we've got a button box, we've got handbrake, sequential shifters, H pattern, all that kind of gig. Different wheels for different sports. All adds to the experience. It's a lot more fun. I'm not going to say it makes you faster. It just makes the experience better, and that's what you want, a better experience. So yeah, get better equipment if you can. Why not? Yeah. Sell a kidney. You only need one.
Now, of course, you've been doing Thea's been doing the all-female championship. And then that was in association with the Coach Dave Academy. So
SimGrid, yes.
Yeah, with the SimGrid. I imagine you will have met David Perel as well, and people like that along the way with Thea. How have you found meeting these kind of real racing drivers and these kind of top sim racers? Has it been quite fun to get to meet them and now regard them as your friends?
I guess in that respect, it's been quite surreal. It's been quite weird, really. Tea's been doing this for quite a short period of time. In reality, we started from very much zero. So to in that short space of time have the kind of contact that she's had from the kind of the people and organisations that have been in touch, like David and others in the background as well. It's companies that have supported as well, like I mentioned, Track Racer, obviously Derek Spear Designs. People in the community as well. To be honest, we've met so many awesome people. We spoke to David a couple of times on FaceTime and so on. I think we caught him just after his win at Spa and so on. He's obviously an incredible guy. He's really driven. The work he does in motorsport and the wins he gets are incredible. And then the fact that he's that fast in sim racing as well. It's a bit like sim racing and motorsport is different. So to be competitive in both of them is pretty awesome. He does do that. He's obviously one of the few who does that. And then what he does with the SimGrid, trying to get sim racing into more of a spotlight and give it more platforms, and all the racing we do with that. And obviously they're only going to grow. So when he approached us and said, we love what the MFR is about and we'd love to help you, we were taken aback. We really were. We were quite surprised. And it was amazing to hear that. It really was. We thought Thea was doing the right thing. She thought she was doing the right thing in trying to get more women involved, of course, in that way. And to see people get on board with that was brilliant. So, who knows what the future holds? In the Rally Cup. So Thea did a Rally Cup quite early on, actually. It's what got her into dirt and dirt rally. This guy was hosting a Rally Cup on Instagram for women only. So she joined up. Yeah. And it's just a simple thing. He just set up a rally club and people did it. And he tried to promote it a little bit on Instagram and so on. And through that, she met a lot of rally drivers because most of the females doing that were real life rally drivers. And then she started to interview them through her show. So she was doing her stages for the rally each week. And then after that, she would do interviewing one of the girls from the rally. And she interviewed, I think, 5 or 6, met girls from all over the world who do rally, co-driving and stuff like that. They're like, I rolled a car a couple of times, landed in a tree, stuff like that. And seeing all these women and so on and chatting was just brilliant. And she met a lot through that. And then, of course, the amazing women she met through the MFR series as well. It's been brilliant. So, really met so many awesome people. It's been great.
Oh, that would be super. You'll have to pass them on our way because we'd love to get them on the show and to do more interviews with them, because that's the thing. I think the great thing about sim racing is it's opened up a market for people who love motorsport and who want to get involved. And so maybe they've watched different types of racing or rallying, and they think, it's expensive to do it in real life. It's expensive to even go and watch it, let alone try and take part. But with sim racing and with games, you can actually have a great time and have a go. And I think it's great the fact that I think a lot of motorsport fans have taken up sim racing, whether they're just doing it for fun or they want to do it better, because they know it gives them a bit more of the action. And until we can start going back to watch races properly, once the coronavirus has hopefully gone, then it's a great fill-in as well to kind of keep our appetite for motor racing and rallying going. Of course, you were at Brands Hatch not too long ago for your birthday, and how did you find that?
That was an incredible experience. That was amazing. I've never been to a major racetrack before, I don't think. Certainly not that springs to mind. So that was amazing. Never been near proper race cars. The only time I'd done that was when, I don't know if you remember, a long time ago, the F1 cars went around Regent Street in London and so on. Around 2006, I think that was, if my memory is good enough. And I, funnily enough, was working in Barclays Bank in Regent Street. I managed to get up onto the third floor balcony and watch them go underneath. The streets were completely crowded and insane. You managed to get just above it, actually, in Regent Street. And the noise from that was almost unbearable. I was like, that was loud. And that was obviously, the V10s and the V12s and all that going around. That was a bit mental. And then sort of fast forward to Brands Hatch. That was my birthday. Obviously, I was 21. So Brands Hatch was the other week, a month ago now, and that was brilliant. They did a reduced entry. We got tickets. It seemed fairly quiet, to be honest. We were lucky because we could walk around all of the track. So I think you said you hadn't been to that one, but
I've not been to Brands Hatch, no.
Right, the inside layout, obviously, you got that kind of forest. We're just walking around that. It's very beautiful. We were very lucky with the weather. It was just sunny all day, despite saying it was going to rain. The forecast was rain, and we didn't get any. Literally, we had the darkest clouds go overhead, nothing. So that was good. But the weather was otherwise beautiful. The racing was not really that intense, obviously, because it's historic and, that kind of stuff. The 50s and 60s F1 cars were probably my favourite in a lot of ways. Really enjoyed that. The noise was just pretty special. The 60s and 70s Can-Am and GT cars were brilliant. The Lolas and so on, they were fantastic. The Minis were brilliant fun, just the most fun. Obviously, Thea's a massive fan of these.
I saw a picture of them that you put up on your Instagram.
So the Minis were brilliant. And then obviously the later F1 cars, the 80s F1 cars were just, the noise from them was, perfect. So really, really great day. Couldn't have it better, really. Quite different, I guess, to what a lot of other motor events would be in terms of, if you went to a big major track on a major race day and watched a couple of major events and, in the morning and afternoon. This was a bit more of a laid-back affair, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think it's always great to see a motor race for real at a circuit, wherever it is. It just adds such a kind of, you get the smell and you get the atmosphere and you get the commentators coming over the radio and all that kind of thing, and it's great fun. And then the build-up of it all goes. I went to see David Perel race last year at Silverstone. In May, when he did the Blancpain Championship, and that was fantastic because I'd actually won a prize with Renault. So I went there for lunch and had all the kind of stuff and
nice.
The drives to some of their cars, the Renault Megane, just on the road outside Silverstone, which was great fun. And then they put you up, and then I had a chance to see David on the grid walk because they allowed us to go into the grid during the build up, and that was fantastic.
Oh yeah, I'll be up for that. Yeah,
it was a sunny day, and although there wasn't a huge amount of people watching, it was still just an incredible atmosphere going onto the circuit when the cars are actually there and the people are there and all of that. I kept kind of out the way because I thought the last thing I want to do is distract somebody when they're kind of there. I let them talk to their engineers and all the things that they were doing. But there's something very special about going to a track. And I recommend going to some of the bigger stuff if you can, because like the Grand Prix
done that this year, so there you go.
Yeah, I know, it's one of these things that we all had hopes to try and do it. Have you ever been to Goodwood, to the Festival of Speed?
That was something I've been wanting to do for a while as well. Again, I've never really done anything like it, to be honest. It's always been kind of a bit of a viewer from afar. So would love to do Goodwood. Always wanted to see the hill climb happen for sure. So we'd love to do that in the next few years, without doubt. And get a load of the community down as well. Get everyone to come with us. That'd be good.
Well, that's the thing. It's great fun. I've been there a few times, and it is brilliant. The best thing to do, just for the noise of it, is when the Formula One cars, the older V8s and V10s are coming out, you go to the Formula One paddock and they bring them out and they kind of put them up in front of the hedge. If you go to the other side of the hedge, you get a little bit of protection in terms of the sound, but one by one they'll start them all up. And the year I was there a few years back, they had the Red Bull, they had the Ferrari, I think they had a Toro Rosso, and they had a Renault. A Renault was there, and one by one they started up. And it was like music to your ears. It was the most incredible thing.
Jam roly poly. Oh, Thea, how about jam roly poly?
Yeah, it's fine. Still 2 minutes left.
Really? Amazing. Sorry, Hugh. I just had this flashback to a pudding that had been ruined. We got jam roly poly is Thea's favourite dessert, and if you know it's like jam roly poly, if you ever cook it, it's gone, right? You can't ever do that. So there we go. Cool. I nearly lost it there. Wow.
That's funny. One of my other co-hosts, Jonathan, said that I got into Daytona Speedway in Florida as a senior citizen, and saying that's a true fact. And that was back in 2008.
Nice. I'll tell you what, that would be something special, going to an American speedway. Obviously, they do things very differently over there. And you see it, you got like, obviously Indianapolis is a big one, but, that bowl where you can see the whole of the racing and, they're coming past at 220 or so mile an hour, and the noise and the speed is, I can imagine that spectacle is really quite something.
Well, you should get a trip to Florida when it's back to normal. Would definitely be worth it. You can actually drive one of the Daytona cars, the kind of the Days of Thunder style V8 thing. At the time, this was a few years back, for $150, you can drive one of those things around the track. I mean, it's kind of crazy. But I don't know how fast they let you go and what they let you do, but it was a proper driving day, arrive and drive.
I'm sure it goes a lot faster than you would take it. So yeah.
That would be the kind of crazy thing. But I think that the best experience I ever had was I saw the European Grand Prix at Donington back in 1993. It was my 18th birthday.
Oh wow!
And I saw Senna win in that incredible race.
Yes.
We were at the back hairpin, and by the time he came round, we'd heard he'd gone back at the first corner, and then when he came to the hairpin or to the kind of the chicane, he was up into second place. And then when he went down the hill and we went out of sight, and then when he came back up the hill, he was ahead of Prost. And that was him leading. And after that, it was absolutely crazy. And the weather was horrendous. It was raining, and it was dry, and they ran out of tires. And so that's the thing, when you can see a big motorsport event like that, it kind of...
Yeah, very lucky to have been there, I guess.
Yeah, well, of course, that was the lap that Murray Walker said that was his favourite lap, I think, or kind of favourite race, or, the start of a race, to go from 7th at the first corner to then be leading by the end of it, then in lap 1.
A lot of people put that race in their top 10, top 5. So yeah, nice.
No, it was quite a thing, and the noise was incredible. Because when they drove past as well, you could see the gear changes. Because obviously now you've got semi-automatics as they had in those days, but the cockpit is so much higher that you can't really see the drivers so much now. You just see the helmet really, and that's about it. In those days, you saw the shoulders, you saw everything, and when they would drive past us, when they pulled for the gear change, you literally saw the head move, as they did it. It must have been a raw and ragged experience of driving,
very physical.
How do you feel? Because you've got such a range of driving experience. Obviously, Thea does Formula One and rallying, all these kind of things. Do you think the games are giving a more realistic experience now?
Depends on the game, to be honest. And obviously, I think they are going to get more and more realistic. I think the obvious thing, I don't know a lot about this, to be fair, Hugh, but I think the obvious thing would be, as I mentioned before, computing power. Obviously, modern PCs can do quite a lot. And so they're going to be able to do more and more of the physics of a car and the road in the game, right? So the simple answer is yes, they can be more accurate. I think there's obviously that kind of element, that art, that human part where you've got to be able to translate whatever a computer can do to what feels like actually driving. The obvious thing is you don't get G-force, right? I think we sometimes forget that very quickly. You're in a sim rig, you don't get G-force, and G-force is a big part of driving in terms of what you can feel and the visceral experience of it. So, knowing when the car's slipping and all those kind of things, you just don't get that with a wheel. So you need sometimes the wheel to do kind of fake some effects for you. So that's not that realistic. It's a different thing, ultimately. It's not the same thing. It never will be. Motion simulators are great, but I know a lot of people that kind of installed them and then don't use them so much because, it's quite a faff in the end. So it is a different experience, simulators, and they're only going to get better. But I think there's also a point where we have to argue what are we trying to simulate in the end and stuff, and obviously transport and motorsport will change in the future. So I guess what we simulate in the future will change. I don't know how far ahead in your world you want to go, but I guess maybe we'll all end up just virtual racing anyway, ultimately, one way or another. So
you wonder where it's going to be, if it'll be hydrogen power or if it'll be fully electric. All these kind of things that are happening, isn't it? But how do you feel about motion simulators? Have you ever tried anything like that?
Yeah, well, we were lucky enough when we went to Brands Hatch. There's a race room area at Brands Hatch.
Yeah.
And they've got a couple of motion rigs there. At first, we didn't. We just used, I think it was Fanatec belt-driven wheels. And then after that, we tried another one where we used a motion rig as well.
Yeah.
And I know there's the thing about degrees of force or function, or whatever you want to call it, or feedback, 2, 3, 4, 6, all sorts of, there's lots of different types and ways of doing motion platforms. And I've only tried one, right? So I think. So I know obviously if you go to an expo, you get to try a few. Obviously, there's no expo this year, but maybe hopefully next year we could do something like that. I've tried one. It was good. I think it was a little bit distracting. It's obviously not perfect by any means, and if there's any lag, that can make things a bit awkward as well because it's not doing what you think it is, right? The thing I really enjoyed was every time you brake, obviously because you need to brake quite hard, it leans the chair forward. Which gave me a nice support for my lower back. So every time I was braking, it's like it's pushing the chair forward for me. So I like that part of it because it simulates the G-force of braking. So I thought that was quite useful. It was fun. You're bouncing around a corner and stuff like that. It just adds a bit of fun to it, for sure. I don't think the neighbours would be very impressed normally with motion platforms in London flats. But it was good fun.
Aye, because that was the thing. I've seen race room equipment. They had a stand at Goodwood a few years ago, and it was great. And I thought it's a great setup actually, because it's pretty much arrive and drive, and they do it all for you. And they had the normal simulators at one side, then they had their motion simulator at the
same big,
And it was impressive, and it was very affordable as well. It was a very good value. Deal overall. I mean, it was something good, whether it's gone up a bit since in the last wee while. But no, it seemed to be like a really great kind of, anyone could just turn up and have a shot and see what it's like. I actually played one at Renault on the same day at Silverstone last year. They had a Megane 280 set up on this, but it was a bit like the rate of motion was kind of crazy because you were almost at, felt like 90 degrees as you went.
Okay.
Far too much, and you felt really
unrealistic.
Yeah, I think it was just too much. Because the car, this is it was supposed to be a track car, and you thought even if you're coming in, it's not going to roll like a Fiat Panda around the bend.
Like a smart car, I
thought it was going to roll over, maybe like on three wheels like a Reliant Robin. But it was too much, especially when you braked.
I've heard that criticism of it. I've heard of quite a few. Because I follow all the sim racing forums on Reddit and Facebook and everywhere else, and I've heard quite a few people say that a very good butt kicker is better in some ways. So you're aware butt kicker, it's like a big, I think like a subwoofer that you put under your seat. There's a few different brands, but I think butt kicker is the most famous. It's like effectively like a speaker, and there are programs for it that read in with the sim racing games to give out data. And I think the main idea of it is, and I've not used one actually, is obviously like going over curbs and impacts and things like that. Puts an incredibly strong vibration through the seat. And apparently that, mixed in with the wheel and the feedback, it can help with lap times in terms of, you're going over the curve now, you'll feel it go right through you, like very strong frequency. And I've heard a few people say that using a very solid butt kicker system, nicely tuned in, again, a lot less hassle than motion rig, all that kind of stuff. And give you a nice level of detail and feedback. So I'd be interested to try a good butt kicker setup at some point. Definitely.
No, that sounds good because I think it's been the motion sims have not really taken off like I think a lot of people thought they would, in the same way as VR. VR hasn't really taken off at all in the way that I think the PlayStation lot thought it would do, because it was a big launch of VR. You had the headset and the whole thing, and I think a lot of people felt quite sick after they had played it. It was not the outcome they were hoping for. But yeah, so I think people prefer either wearing a normal headset to whether streaming or whatever, or just. But certainly the VR hasn't taken off. I wonder whether they'll have to kind of work on that in the future, or just stick to the kind of standard setups.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of reasons for that. We had a VR headset for the PC. We sold it. I think it's quite interesting, actually, because you say that, and it makes me think of, there was a film I watched a few years ago. Was it Ready Player One? And everyone in the film is wearing VR headsets and dancing around in their houses. Everyone's wearing a VR headset. And that's the future. And I thought, what rubbish. Wearing a VR headset and dancing around your living room, that lasts 5 minutes. What people actually like doing is sitting down for long periods of time. We can't stand for long periods of time, but we can sit with, a controller. Yeah. We can sit at a desk with a keyboard and mouse. We can even sit in a rig for a good 5-6 hours, right? It's easy and it's comfortable. But you start putting on a headset, within 20 minutes you're sweaty or feeling sick, or your cables get twisted, or it's hot. It's quite uncomfortable. We had a VR headset because I really wanted to try it. We had a strong PC. That was part of the reason I wanted to do it. And I wanted to do VR racing, right? I could see it was looking pretty special. There was a lot of complications with it. Some of it was brilliant. It's very involving. Some of the games we really enjoyed, some shooting games and stuff, were fantastic. There was one game which was like the Half-Life thing from Valve, Boneworks, where they did like a little testing lab for VR, where they had very complex guns and objects and physical things that you could move and play with. And with the sickness problem, it's a killer. And it's a real killer, because I was okay with it, but there were certain games in certain ways you could move and you'd be like, ooh, within a second.
Really? Yeah.
Oh, it's a weird. Obviously, it's a lot to do with the brain and eyes. I don't understand the middle ear, your balance, all that stuff. But there were certain experiences in certain games you could do one thing and you just want to throw up right there and then, right? And then other people are much more susceptible to it, of course. Much more susceptible. The killer for me was knowing that after a VR experience, you'd be feeling rough. And the problem with motion sickness is it doesn't go, right? It's there for about 2, 3, 4 hours sometimes. And that very quickly starts putting you off the idea of putting the headset on again. So, I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, stick with it; you'll get used to it," and so on. I'm sure you would, but it's a lot of hassle, and a brilliant screen and a wheel. To be honest, it's
so much better, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good enough. I mean, So VR is great. The technology will always improve, which I think is useful. But there's a few reasons why I don't think it gets adopted. I think we'll have things implanted in our eyes and our spines long before we have big headsets stuck on our faces. So ask Elon, he'll tell you it's implants. We'll be sticking implants in us. There's no point in putting big headsets on.
You can have that. I think I'll turn that one down, thanks.
Oh, you might not be a choice. There you go. You might not be a choice.
I'll have to go and emigrate to some tropical island somewhere.
Well, I mean, would you like to have the internet in your brain, Hugh?
No.
You could do any calculation. You could speak any language. You'd know every fact.
Maybe. Still a no. Now here's a comment we've got from Jonathan. Simulators with motion sensors just can't handle sustained G-forces. The aircraft ones are great for regular flying and simple emergency training, but cannot replicate the more extreme maneuvers. Jonathan's actually a pilot.
Wow.
So it says he uses they go to the big Boeings and they go on the big simulators that cost thousands of pounds to use. They're incredible because they're on all these air pressure things.
Yeah, the big pneumatic ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's quite a thing. All the 1,000 buttons when you go inside and dials and everything else. Yeah, so it's interesting how that will go forward. I just think that even with from the track racer sim that you've got there, which is very, very good indeed, and then the competition that you had for the V-Rig racer, I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible, that thing.
Yeah, that's on my wish list for sure, because I think that one, because I love to have the option of doing different types of racing on rallying, and that one you can just change and make it as to what you would like, which is brilliant. And it's relatively inexpensive. I think it was about €1,000 to buy one.
Yeah, that's what I saw last time,
Yeah, which is really, so for about 850 quid, it's actually a bit of a bargain for what you can use. What would be your ideal setup? If you could have a kind of no expense spare, what would be your kind of sim rig that you would like?
What would be my ideal setup? Well, I was talking about this with Thea the other day, actually, and to be honest, we're incredibly lucky here. I can't say we're far off it, really. Obviously, we haven't got load cell pedals, so yes, some load cell pedals would be lovely. So obviously, it's the pressure you're applying rather than how far it's pressed, right? So load cell pedals would be lovely. They're more accurate. I've used them a few times now, and they're always nice. The wheel, it'd be nice to have a direct drive wheel, which gives you more force, but also doesn't really have any issues after long periods. So obviously a big problem with anything that uses a belt is it can get hot because of the friction and so on, and the lag in it. So a direct drive wheel would be lovely. We've got some lovely steering wheels. I really can't complain about any of these, to be honest. Top notch. The gear shifters, we've got a top notch. We've got an incredible handbrake and so on. This seat is a bit of a catch-all seat. This is a big seat, and I'm not the biggest guy. So I think a seat that was fitted to me would be ideal. Obviously race drivers, they get fitted into their seat, right? Yeah. Yeah. So I think a seat fitting for the rig would be quite special. That'd be an ideal rig. And then I think for the screens, I always said I wanted an ultra wide, right? Yeah. And I kind of get the feeling triples would be quite special, because I've noticed one thing with the triples is obviously they come to the sides a lot more than a curved, and you get the peripheral vision. And when you see people using the side panels, it really whizzes past you, and I think that would create much more feeling of speed. So I think I like the idea of having some triple screens that really come sideways a bit to put you in it. And one thing I've noticed people doing on Reddit is putting something over the top, like a blanket or a wood covering, to make it feel like a cockpit. Yeah, so you really add to it. Yeah, so I think that would, and then maybe some aircon at that point. So I think, well, you get people with the blowing fans. If you've seen the fan blowers, they look interesting. Chuck some of them in, why not? I think that would be me. Oh, and a really good pair of gloves. Obviously, you got some good gloves. I think that on a top PC with a new graphics card, and 30 of my friends in a lobby on ACC. Something like that.
Well, that's what they're supposed to be bringing out, isn't it? On the updates of ACC, bigger private lobbies are the things.
Oh, what? Okay, what for console are we referring to? Or?
I think for the PC version, are they not in?
Okay. I don't know. For the PC, you've got a cat there. Watch out, by the way. He's literally under the wheels. Sorry, trying to kill the cat over here. I'm not sure how it works, because for the PC, we always use lobbies that are configured privately. So, or indeed we hire one at the moment. So I know with the console system, obviously, because you can't use a PC to configure a console server. I don't know how that side works at the moment. So there you go.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, because I'm hoping to eventually be able to join you all when I get my PC ACC working properly.
Of course you can. You'll be able to join us, Stu. We can't wait. We can't wait to have you in the races, mate. So, get your PC sorted. If you need any help with the PC, there's 1 million people in our server, and I'm sure you know loads of people as well that can help you. And then do some laps and join the back of the track. You love it.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, because it's great fun, and just from playing ACC earlier on, it really gets you into it, and it's a much more. It gives you the realism, and I always find that if I go back to GT Sport after that, I tend to be quicker, because what you learn from ACC you can carry over into GT Sport much better, which is really good. Well, look, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on the show tonight, Jeff. I really appreciate it. I know you've got a very busy schedule, and it's been lovely to have you there. We haven't heard Thea in the background. I honestly thought we'd hear her.
She's been too busy listening, I think. Stuck in the headphone. Yeah, I don't know. Thea, do you want to come say hello quickly? Thea? We'll see. She might. She might pop in and say hello quickly.
But that's the thing. And of course, next week we've got David Perel on the show, which will be fantastic. Looking forward to that. Hello there. Hello.
Sorry, I was just fucking the cat in the other room.
Giving the cat some love. He needs a lot of attention. That's the way he's built. There we go. Cool.
Well, hopefully I'm based up here in the Scottish borders, and we have the Jim Clark Motorsport Museum now. It was launched last year, and it's a huge building, and it's got an old 1960s simulator. It's a proper replica of the Cooper, the kind of Cooper racing car that Jim Clark raced. It looks like it's had an accident because all the wheels are off it. It's just a kind of hub in the kind of middle of it. It's great fun, but we're hoping that when things get back to normal, and obviously we have the Jim Clark Rally back again, that we're going to have a sim race. And we're going to try and get some of the big sim racers like your good self and Thea and people like Super GT and others to come along and to take part, because I think it's we've got the celebration of Jim Clark and the old kind of the historic value of motorsport heritage, but also the newcomers, all the new guys that are at the cutting edge, which really I think sim racing is a part of. So as that grows, we'll hope it'd be wonderful to have you up at that. I know we've got people interested. We've got people like Tidgney and Rory Alexander. Here he is. He's quite keen to do it. Hopefully, the Key 25 as well, but it would maybe be a fun trip for you to come up.
Oh yeah, just up the road from London, we'll pop up. Yeah, it'd be great fun.
It's only 40 miles.
Yeah, no, we'd love to do that. I mean, it's quite weird, Hugh, because Thea started this channel. She started it, at the beginning of February, end of January, before COVID was a twinkle in our eyes, right? And since she started and started building this community, we've not really been able to do anything face to face, go to any events, go to exhibitions, sim racing, or do these things. So, yeah, it's kind of weird like that. And we are obviously hoping that when things are a bit less impossible in that way, we'll plan a lot, and we'd love to meet lots of people and see and do lots of things like that for sure. So keep the invites coming.
A great race up here. It'd be fantastic fun, and you're always welcome up here in the Scottish borders. It will give you a warm welcome. Absolutely. But no, that's brilliant. Well, look, thank you very much for coming on the show tonight. And to all our viewers and listeners, stay on the line there just now, Jeff, before you go. And I'll have a quick word with you afterwards. But for all our viewers and all our listeners, remember that next week we've got David Perel coming on at 9 o'clock live. So you don't want to miss that one. Make sure you've got your questions ready. And of course, on Monday at 9 o'clock, we have my good self, Fat Man in the Cheap Sim, racing on GT Sport. Although I might do something else. I might surprise you with a different game on Monday night. But thank you very much for all your comments, for all your great questions. And of course, thank you to Jeff Colclough, the man behind Thea, TheAmusante. It's great to have you on the show. And our motto here at the end of the Car, Sim and Race Driver show, as always, is drive fast and try not to crash. See you soon. Take care. And bye just now.
Bye now.